Morning. I get into the farm here this morning. I just was walking around looking at the combine after I did some washing yesterday to see where we're at with stuff. Found a little more dirt, picked some stuff off, but we've gotten the bulk of it and stuff, so a little work with the hose I think and we'll be pretty good. And then I want to go foam the sides and wash it with soap real good, and then I don't know if we'll wax it or not, but make it shiny at least. So, but this morning the plan is filters. I've said I'm going to do that, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with some air filters. So some of you may have noticed that we have an air filter right here underneath this side shield, which is kind of in an unusual spot. That is not the air filter for the engine. That is actually for the exhaust system, which is a little bit weird, but let me explain. So back here, this kind of cabinet is to encase the exhaust components. You can see that it comes out through the rear panel here. The reason it is encased is because the emissions components on here, when it does its regens or whatever, where it burns off the soot in the exhaust system by injecting fuel in there, it gets super hot. And super hot in combines where there is dust and debris and combustible materials is a bad combination. And so the way Deere has addressed that is they built a cabinet around that exhaust, and then they pressurize it and blow air in there to keep all the dirt and everything out. That's what this tube here is. And so you'll see that comes down to this blower, which is basically a supercharger, but it doesn't go into the intake of the engine. It goes into that exhaust cabinet, pressurizes it, keeps everything out. So that blower draws its air from this filter. So that filter is actually what they call an engine debris management filter. It is just an air filter. There's an inner and an outer. And yeah, we're gonna change it. It's not terribly dirty, but it is dirty. So when we first got this combine, this was the first ones that they put that system on, because this combine was made in August of 2014 and it was July 1st when they started putting them on. So real early in the process, the air intake, this pipe here that's bringing it into the filter, was actually like right here. And it was dusty and dirty, and you couldn't run for a day without plugging that filter up. And so they came out with an improvement shortly thereafter that pipes it up, and it actually pulls from the same place that the engine air filter pulls its clean air from. So it's better, still a pain in the butt. Anyway, I'm gonna get the new one out. I'm gonna get some paper towels and clean up that housing and get the new inner filter on there, because I don't like taking those off and then cleaning. I don't want to get any dirt in. One thing we do like to do is write the date and the hours on the filters when we change them. You can see this one here is last year's. We did it on January 7th, and it had 1,804 engine hours on it, and now we're at 2,064, which means basically we put 260 hours on the combine this year. All right, got the clean filters in. Get the cover seated right. All right, that one's done. What's next? Engine air filters, main engine air filters, I guess. Could be them other two big boxes. So this is where the engine air filter is. That big one. And it's actually drawing its air. See, let's see, this pipe right here is the one that goes down down there somewhere. But anyway, that goes to the filters we just changed. Kind of snakes up along, and then it goes down. And then both of those filters are drawing the air through this which comes from over here and this rotary screen that keeps everything clean for the engine and the fan and everything. So that's why it's important that that keeps turning. And if you go back to some of my harvest videos, you'll see where we broke that belt. Anyway, clearly they still get dusty, but at least we don't have to stop and blow them out every day. For those of you that don't know how this setup works, basically this is the engine air filter. All of the air that the engine uses, which this engine uses a lot of air, goes through this filter to make sure it's clean so it doesn't damage any of the internal components of the engine from having dust and dirt in there. And it is a 2-filter system, so that filter is the secondary engine air filter, or the inner filter, and this one is the outer. And basically this one just slides over that, and so the air has to make it through both of those filters in order to get into the engine. And the reason that there's two is just to ensure that the air is clean. So if this outer one gets dirty and plugged up, we actually can take it out. We can use our shop air compressor with a hose and blow the dirt out of it. But you want to make sure you don't damage it. And if you do damage it, it would create a big hole that would allow stuff to get right into the engine. So that's what that secondary filter is for. Just in case you do get a little hole or something, that secondary filter will catch any contaminants that make it through the primary filter, the first one, the outside one. The inside filter is not serviceable. It's not cleanable. You don't ever blow air on it. You don't ever do anything to try and get any of the dirt out of it, because you'll damage it, and then there's nothing stopping dirt from getting straight into the engine. So that one is a replace only. Most of the time when we replace them, they look pretty clean. They don't look like they have hardly any dirt in them at all. But if you take a light and put it on the inside and shine it and compare it to a new one, there's definitely some dirt in it. You can see a difference. And so anytime we change an outer filter, we change the inner filter as well, which at least here we do it every year. I washed this cover that goes over that engine filter, so I'm going to let that dry. And in the meantime, we'll go on to the next filter, which we're going to do this one. This is the cab air filter. Basically, it's the filter that brings fresh air into the cab for the air conditioning system and the heater, so that it's not blowing a bunch of dust from outside in too. So this one fits right on the outside of the cab, right up there. And so we'll go and get that one down. This one is always very, very dirty. Doesn't look bad from here, right? Yeah. This bean dust is nasty stuff. That one's dirty. This is what that filter looked like when we put it in a year ago. There's another filter for the cab air conditioning stuff up in here. This one is what they call the recirculating air filter, and basically it draws air from in the cab. And yeah, just like in your car. So you can see that one got quite dirty as well. So I've got a new one of those. A little stick up in there. And put the cover back on. Okay, all that I have left to change now is fuel filters, basically. This one is kind of the pre-filter or strainer or whatever you want to call it. It goes in this little canister here, which I'm pretty sure this white on the bottom is water in there. It's kind of the water fuel separator. So we're going to drain that and see what the filter looks like. The screen, I'll either clean it or put this new one in. In order to take that off, you have to come over here and turn this valve. Otherwise, you will in fact drain the entire fuel tank, which will not be good. Okay, that was indeed water in the bottom of this canister. And while that strainer wasn't terrible, there was a fair amount of gunk in the bottom of it, and so I decided to just put the new one in because this piece is cheap and it's not that big a deal. So let's put a clean one in, start fresh, so we know we won't have any problems. All right, got it back on. We'll open our fuel valve back up. I don't know if it will fill. Yep, it is. At least some. So I do need to change the other fuel filters, the primary fuel filters, but I don't want to do them until I at least start the engine up and run it and let it purge the air from this one out. So otherwise, sometimes you get too much air in the system and it can be awfully hard to start. So yeah, we'll go do that, I guess. I ran the combine, cut the air out of the fuel system from changing that strainer, so now we need to change these two filters right here. These are both fuel filters. We've got a primary and a secondary. So I'm going to do that. The trick is doing it without either spilling fuel everywhere or getting fuel all over yourself. So we'll see how we do here. Well, I managed to catch most of it, either in that bucket or that one. So not too bad. I do have to get this piece off the old one, put it on the new filter. All right, fuel filters are changed. So these filters are on this combine or any of our tractors at this point, or most of them. They have an electric fuel pump on the top there, and they self-prime. So we'll go up in the cab and turn the key on for a minute or two and let the filters fill up, and then it should start right up, and we don't have to worry about priming them or pre-filling them or anything like that. That way all the fuel goes through both filters and you don't have some that you pour in that doesn't get filtered. So this other filter over here is the engine oil filter. That will get changed at the dealer when they go through and do their PIP to stop the oil from getting into the coolant. So we're not going to mess with that because John Deere's going to pay for that fix. So I think that's all we need to do as far as filters are concerned. Oh, I do need to get my marker and write date and hours on those. Okay, since I got those fuel filters changed back there, I just turned the key on, but I didn't try and start it. I'm going to let the filters prime, and in a minute or so here, I'll try and start it. We'll see if it runs. We're good. So I was just up here looking at this side of the combine and looking where the shoe augers go back in and stuff, getting ready to do that. I noticed this bolt is missing. So I got to digging up in behind here, and there's some dirt and stuff in there I was trying to pick out, and I was trying to see how to get in there. So stuck my head in here like so, and gives you a pretty good view of that rotor, which is kind of cool. But you see this plate, it's sort of hard to see, but it's clearly worn out right there. And so we need to change this. Fortunately, it looks like it's just 4 bolts that hold it in, and I should be able to get that out. I may have to pull the rest of these concaves out to get it out, but it doesn't look terribly hard to change. Those are the kinds we're looking for and why we go through it so thoroughly. Well, I got them bolts out, but I can't get that plate to fall out of there for whatever reason. It doesn't look like it's attached to anything. I don't know if it's just stuck or if there's something on the ends holding it or what, but I'm going to have to pull out a couple more of these concaves, I guess. Which isn't ideal, but it's not that big a deal because they're fairly easy to come out with these half-width ones, and it'll give me a little more room for putting stuff back together when we get to them shoe augers and stuff anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, I guess. Okay, change of plans. I do need to do that. I need to take this concave and this concave out at least so we can get in there and get that piece out a little bit better. However, it's middle of the afternoon, almost 2:30. I have to go get tires for my truck at 3, so I got to get out of here and go do that. So I guess that'll probably be the end of today's video. I don't think I'm going to make it back. But yeah, so tomorrow's plan, get that piece out of there. Probably going to put the shoe auger stuff back together. I'm hoping Jack comes back tomorrow. I called about that gearbox that I'm waiting on today that drives this vertical auger. Goes up under here. I would really like to get that put back together before we put the duals back on. But they're not going to have it done until Thursday. Today's Tuesday, so a couple more days. I don't know. We'll see how tomorrow goes. If we can get the shoe augers back in there and we're looking for stuff to do, maybe we'll throw the tires back on. Trying to start getting this thing wrapped up. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. These days, plans don't mean a whole lot. I don't get as far as I want to every day, but at least we got the filters done, and we're starting to get towards the end of the cleaning process here. So, excuse me. Anyway, I will probably make another video tomorrow, and we'll just keep going like we are. So, yeah. Hit the like, subscribe buttons. Leave me some feedback. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter if you want. And we'll talk to you later. Have a good night. These ones are wore out. Those will be much better.